Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I explore how and where technology is transforming lives, workplaces, industries, and even our world. And I also love sharing very human stories of how technology is making a real difference to people and families. And after speaking with more and more who are working overseas and then sending money back home to their families, I wanted to learn more about how tech is making that easier. And I've recently noticed that retailers such as Walmart are already trying to get into financial services. It launched back in December, a payment app that allows Mexican customers to receive remittances from the US. And the remittance market seems to be just heating up. So when I discovered a Los Angeles-based BayaniPay and how it was launching a new borderless digital banking service in partnership with BDO Unibank, the largest bank in the Philippines, and Seafood City, a large US-based Filipino market chain. So I wanted to find out more about the service, the partnership, and the companies that are offering millions of Asian Americans a low-cost and yet frictionless way to send money to their families back in their homelands, and so they can pay bills and conduct online transactions too. It's a great story, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Los Angeles, where Winston Damarillo is waiting to speak with us now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, Neil. Hi. Thanks for having me. So my name is Winston Damarillo. I am the CEO of a venture builder called Talino Labs, and also CEO of a new startup we built called BayaniPay here in Los Angeles.
It sounds like you're spinning a lot of plates down right in the heart of technology. But I've got to ask, can you share your origin story? Where did that passion for technology come from? And ultimately, what put you on this path that you're on right now?
Well, it started at an early age, which means it's a long time ago. I grew up in the Philippines and always wondering what it's like in Silicon Valley and in the United States. And so I moved early. And as an immigrant, I was fascinated at the time with Microsoft, Intel, or IBM. I wanted to work for these large companies in tech. I had thought that this was kind of the early stage of computing and networking and the internet. So I was very, very excited about the possibilities then. And so with that, I thought if I wanted to be good at this, I'd go to the United States. A bit naive at the time. I thought that my early education in the Philippines is good enough to land me at Intel, Microsoft, or IBM. And so I tried, must have been 30 times to apply in any of those three companies, and decided that the only way I could get in is to write my own software. So I did, and presented it to Intel and said, hey, you can get my code if you hire me. And that was my only backdoor way around competing with Stanford and MIT grads into Intel. So it was early days of, it's good to not know what you don't know at the time and just dive right in and compete among the best. And I was fortunate. I joined Intel and became a part of the Intel Architecture Labs then. Again, at the dawn of, computing being networked together and the internet just starting out. And we built at the Intel Labs, the Internet Communications Group, where I started my tech career.
Wow, an incredibly cool story. And of course, now you're talking to me in Los Angeles today, and that path led you to BayaniPay, which you mentioned at the very beginning of the interview. But can you tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you set out to solve, and also the story behind BayaniPay?
Yeah, so, as I was solving problems for Intel, kind of eventually moved into entrepreneurship and have been building startups. My early startups were more about tech, were more about open source Java. It was more about cloud computing, and it was just purely tech. And I think what had happened in the last few years, as I get older, more mature in my career, I started thinking, what can I do with this tech? How can I help? And so after I sold my first three startups in Silicon Valley, with inspiration from the World Economic Forum, where I joined and was appointed one of the young global leaders, we went to Southeast Asia and started thinking about what we can do with technology to help, humanity in general. And I selected FinTech as the space I want to spend time on. And financial inclusion was a big, important endeavor that we spent in Southeast Asia. And we had very good luck as we embarked there. And then I decided, and it's motivated by COVID, to come back in the US early last year in June. And I noticed that financial inclusion is still a problem in the United States. I didn't realize that a developed, country like the US would still have 21% of our citizens underbanked, and that there's still a big, opportunity for financial services technology for the underserved and the underrepresented. So BayaniPay was born out of the idea of realizing that most workers and most professionals are now global. They leave their home countries, they go to either the UK or the United States to seek a better life. And, they face a really interesting challenge financially. You arrive in the United States, for instance, with zero credit score, be difficult to get a bank or a credit card. And because of that, it's difficult to send money home. And so these are problems that I faced when I was early on moved in the United States. And I just took it as a badge of honor to take on the hardship and deal with it, right? I didn't realize that, if there's a way to help and fix this problem, it's a great opportunity. So that's why we set up BayaniPay. We envision that immigrants and global professionals are typically of two countries, or at least, where they, now operate, where they work. And they typically send back home some money for their relatives, or maybe perhaps in investments, or they would need to use some of their assets back home where their home country is to borrow money here in the United States. So that banking, seems to have not left borders yet, right? And what we wanted to do with BayaniPay is to provide a new kind of bank, a new kind of financial services, so that if you were to consume the app, and it's very similar to what's being popularized in the UK, like a Monzo or a Revolut, right? But it's a very easy to use application. But then the uniqueness of it is it talks to two banks, bank from my home country and bank from my current country of employment, and it makes that experience seamless. A great benefit of that is it makes remittance very low cost. It makes sending money home, very cheap from a transaction cost standpoint, and very high return from a foreign exchange standpoint. So we wanted to make that happen. Digital is a way to do it. COVID has accelerated our propensity to be tolerant of all digital now, or at least we're moving faster into digital because of the current pandemic. And that transition actually will lower the cost of sending money home, lower the cost of maybe even borrowing money. And there's a lot of innovation started here in the US and in the UK in financial services. I think the global migrant workers and the global professionals still underserved. And then this is the opportunity of Bayani, and we're so excited about it.
And that's one of the reasons you guys appeared on my radar, because it sounds so simple. Because I think we are, especially because of COVID, people can work anywhere on any device. And I've also seen countries opening up. For example, here in Europe, Croatia have said, if you want to ride out COVID over here for a year, come over to our country and we'll let you in, and you can work from here. And the fact that it's the first mobile service that empowers global professionals working abroad to take financial care of their families and communities that may be back home in another country. I would imagine there are so many people like this. In fact, I know people like that, and I'm sure you do too. But so many people are unaware of the problem and how tech can make life easier for families on the opposite side of the world. But are you surprised that you guys are the first people to come out here and do this and help people?
Well, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And it's a large community. It's 500 million people are global in general, right? And people have, I think that the surprise is, it's been looked at as transactional, meaning I remit money. I go to Western Union, right? I will hand cash to a counter, and that will go home, and that's transactional. What's not done yet is to view global professionals as a long-term employee or a customer. it's a long-term client that you nurture. You provide services beyond the transactional remittance, who you would start to think about what are their financial needs beyond sending money home, right? Do they need to borrow money? Do they need to, buy assets either here or back home? So if you look at a migrant professional as a banking customer potential, then you start thinking differently. Right? You want to add more value-added services to them. And that leads us to the few product innovations that we're bringing with BayaniPay, apart from cost and convenience. So definitely out of the gate, we want to address cost and convenience. It'd be the cheapest way to remit. It will give you the best Forex and the convenience. You can do it from your phone and not going anywhere else. That's the cost and convenience. But apart from that, we want to make sure that the app also addresses issue of what if an emergency happens? What if I need to have regular payments to a business, not an individual, right? What if I need to buy insurance? What if I need to really just have a bank that understands who I am? I'm a global professional, right? I'm not in my home country. Create financial services that adapts to me, as opposed to me finding ways to adapt to an existing bricks and mortars bank.
And I suppose we do have people listening in 165 different countries. So much of what we're talking about here is going to resonate with people. And I suppose one of the first things a lot will think is, okay, this sounds great, perfect for me, but what about the transaction fees? How high are those? But I'm sure I read somewhere before you came on the podcast that you're set to roll out BayaniPay Plus. So for regular users, I think it's almost like a yearly subscription service that waives those transaction fees and offers other benefits. Is that right? And can you expand on what people can expect?
Well, that's one of the innovations we want to bring to the table here. It's since been called now Bayani Prime. And the purpose of Bayani Prime is really to, as we look at the pattern of sending money home, it's consistent. You do it every month. You do it in about the same amount of money. And we thought, hey, Amazon has done Amazon Prime really well. Costco have membership grocery shopping. And if the pattern is completely the same, why can we not reduce the cost even further by making sending money home a membership benefit? And so we created BayaniPay Prime so that people sign up to it one time. It will start with cost. Obviously, once you sign one time for $19.95 US, you can remit as many times as you want throughout the year. And with that, you also get other perks, right? It combines it's like going to a membership club, right? Combines the cost and convenience with other perks you can get by becoming a member. So that will lower the transaction costs. We'll always guarantee that they'll have their money sent faster than anybody else, and that the foreign exchange rates are better than most of what's available out there. So it makes it so that it's a consistent process, and by making it consistent, it makes it lower cost and higher convenience for our customers. We also let them connect to their bank one time and connect to their beneficiary one time. So it's going to be very, very fast on the subsequent. It's almost like Amazon, right? The next time you send, it already knows where it's sending the goods, which home it's going, and it already knows your pay platform. So it makes it one click, almost one click from that standpoint. So that's what we intend to do in Bayani Prime. And that's when we scan the world about that kind of service, it seems to be first of its kind, where it really is taking that step of, I don't view a customer a transactional or a one-time customer. I view a customer as a long-time customer, a repeat customer. And because we view them as a repeat customer, we can lower their cost. We can understand them better. We can tailor the service so it really is built for them, as opposed to the other way around.
Love that. And I love the story behind it, and how obviously you're in Los Angeles now and you know a lot about the communities in the Philippines. I'm talking to you from the UK, and I know people that regularly send money back to India and Africa, etc. The world does feel like it's getting smaller, but I've got to ask, what regions of the world and type of global professionals are you serving right now?
Well, certainly we're keying on top four, right? It's the Chinese, India, Philippines, Mexico, and I believe Egypt's the fifth.
Yeah.
but we're only starting there so we can perfect the service. Now, Filipinos are convenient for me because I'm Filipino myself, and we have connections in the Philippines. And Filipinos are highly concentrated in California, where we can perfect our product here as a starting point. So for the global remittance, the Philippines remit home about $38 billion. Half of that is done in the United States, and half of the United States remittance is in California. So the density gives us the way to perfect the product. So we're starting in California with Filipinos. We're slowly growing to Asian Americans in the United States, and then Latinos, and then the Middle East. So that's kind of our intended growth pattern for this model. What we're pleasantly and excitedly pursuing is the fact that the mindset's consistent, right? If you are a global migrant professional, you send money home. You prefer not to send money just to a person, but you wanted to pay for, your condominium, your home investments, your car, your hospitals, or even education fees directly. So instead of handing money to another person in the hopes that that person will pay we use the money for its intended use. We now are creating more of a connection direct consumer to business payments. And that's another set of innovation that's also bringing in BayaniPay, is to give the remitter an assurance that their money is going to the right places. And that's a common use case. Everybody needs that, right? And wherever your home and whatever your ethnicity is. So we're progressing into that as well. And we hope this is a service that really would be the first financial institution that's 100% focused on global professionals.
And just to bring to life what we're talking about here, if we have an Asian American listening in California, this appeals to them. Can you walk me through how they would be able to leverage this frictionless way to send money back home to their family, pay bills, conduct online transactions? Can you just walk me through that process of what they can expect?
Yeah, so the key to success here is really to do the infrastructure, the platform that we're building, and the underpinnings, right? We create point-to-point relationships between the United States or soon in the UK with a home country bank. So in our case, we create a pre-built relationship between the United States banks and Banco de Oro in the Philippines, which is the largest bank in the Philippines. And by creating those partnerships, we put a technology infrastructure bridge between the two. So there's fast and accurate and reliable transmission of money from the United States to the Philippines. That's how we lower the cost by creating that. And then we create a ethnically focused interface, so it feels natural and comfortable. If I'm a Filipino, it looks like a Filipino app. If I'm Vietnamese, as an example, it'll look like a Vietnamese app. That gives me comfort to bank. That gives me comfort that my money is going in a partner that I recognize back home. So that infrastructure we're building now. And so that's our way of ensuring that we essentially create seamless relationships between two banks, in one app with BayaniPay. So with that, so many innovations we can do. I can borrow money for a car, whether it's in the US or my home country. I can apply for a loan, in any country and leverage my assets. We're doing technology patents around composite credit scoring, where your credit score is a combination of your old credit score wherever your home country is and your credit score in your current country of work, and combine those two and really use digital analytics to provide that person his best possible financial services rates that they can get.
And of course, you made it sound incredibly easy for the user to get to grips with, which is fantastic. And you did say that you were building this infrastructure bridge between the two worlds. Again, you made it sound very easy, but I suspect if we look under the hood, it's much more complex than that. So can you tell me a little bit more about the technology that makes all this possible?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I started out as a geek. I'm still a geek. I still write code, even if my engineers sometimes don't accept my politely decline my contributions. But at the Lino Labs, which is our parent company, we created a platform called the Financial Inclusion Technology. And it's really purposely built so that people that are currently excluded from financial services on-ramp very quickly to it. So it includes compliance to regulatory framework, like your KYC, knowing who you are, biometrically analyzing your face and your identity, running complex checking on anti-money laundering, as an example, or politically exposed people, and ensuring that we keep track of your activity in analytics so that you get credit for positive financial transactions. So those are the underpinnings of that infrastructure, and it's very difficult, typically available to the high-end customers. We want to make that democratize that to the rest of the universe, and specifically for migrant workers and global professionals. And then we make that work in two jurisdictions, right? The jurisdiction of, say, the United States or the UK, and the home country at the same time. So those is what we call infrastructure, right? Nothing happens until those are laid in. Yeah. And then we focus on the UX, the user interfaces, so that the banking app feels natural, feels at home, feels comfortable to use to our end users. And so that's kind of the technology underpinning behind all of this. What's great and what's complex about FinTech is you have to build very complex technology, and at the same time, you also need to make sure the regulators are happy with it. So those two tend to be kind of the barrier before you even write your first app, right? And that's what we invest in 6 years to build Intelino Labs. And in the last year, we then take a special purpose application for that, specific to global professionals. And that's the genesis of BayaniPay. I forgot to mention what BayaniPay means. The word Bayani means hero in Filipino. And we chose the word because global professionals that continue to support their friends, their family home, are considered economic heroes, right? In the Philippines, for sure, it's 10% of our GDP. And I'm sure it's the same for the rest of the global professionals that support home. So, when you're caring for the Bayanis, right? People that have left the countries and working really hard, we want to make sure we care about, it's ingrained in our product design that these guys are working really hard. Take great care of their money. Take great care that they maximize the fruits of their labor. And so we kind of take the word Bayani. It seems to have resonated well to our customers.
Well, I always say in every episode that technology works best when it brings people together, and you're doing just that. But I've got to ask, if we put everything that we talked about today together, what is your grand vision for BayaniPay? Where do you go from here?
Our goal is to really create a global bank, a frictionless bank, a borderless bank, right? And we wanted to support anyone that is mobile. From it's not. Yeah, I think the world's going to become a smaller place. I think boundaries will blur eventually, and banking's not that yet. Banking is still not frictionless at the moment. It still costs money, for instance, to spend. To use your credit card in another country, as an example. It's still expensive to send money home. It's still difficult to carry your credit worthiness beyond jurisdictions, right? And it's still, anchored on where you borrowed money to begin with, and that's where your credit score lies. So I want to make sure that through Bayani, for people that are global professionals, that they have a bank or a financial services platform that understands the nature of what they do, which is they leave home and they travel. So if you ever envision at some point a digital borderless global bank, that's what we are building towards in Bayani. We wanted to make sure that we serve as a significant portion of the 500 million people that currently are global professionals. And we want to make sure that people are no longer bound by jurisdiction in terms of their banking and financial services platform.
It's a beautiful moment to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. But before I do let you go, I always like to have a bit of fun with my guests. We've heard about your origin story and the path that led you here, but I'm now going to ask you, what was the soundtrack to that origin story? Was there a song or piece of music that has inspired you or accompanied you along that path? Is there a story and song you can choose for our Spotify playlist?
Gosh, I think there was one that I can remember. This was in 2005. I had just sold my company to IBM. And this was a labor of love and sweat and tears. And we finally hit to that end point. And we purposely, because we were young, wanted to put more risk and make sure it's 2005 is when we sold the company. So I think Speed of Sound by Coldplay is one of the songs that I keep ringing in my head, right? It's basically, how long is this going to take? That the last moment of the finish line of the culmination of your work. And for me, while it was kind of a theme song just to get us through waiting for all these documents to be signed and IBM to conclude the deal, it did feel like, startup world. It's hurry up and wait, right? And then it's the persistence that you need to have to make it through the finish line. And so that just kind of stuck at the time. And when I think about starting a new company, I always think about the finish line as well, wherever that is, whether it's an IPO or an acquisition exit, that you work hard to get to a point and just have the persistence to get there.
Oh, great choice. You made me feel old now, though. I've just realised, as you said, that was 2005. I never realised that song was
I am completely dating myself here.
I can't believe Speed of Sound's 15 years old, man. Jeez, where's the time go?
It is. Oh, it feels like it. Well, it's a classic, right? So I keep listening to Clock. I think that and Clock are the two things that kind of keep in mind. I think if every time you build a startup, you're racing against time, right? Yeah. Time is important. Time is money. Time is really, So I think that's that's just kind of the song that runs into my head every time we face challenges.
Brilliant. And before I let you go, for anyone listening want to find out more information about BayaniPay, how they can sign up, find out more details, or even contact your team, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, go to our website. It's www.BayaniPay.com. And we have links to either contacting us or testing our product. We look forward to feedback from everyone. We really purposely built this for the global professional, and we hope we'll get a chance to collaborate.
Excellent. Well, I'll add those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. I love how you've used technology here to break down the borders in banking and level the playing field for global citizens. Like I said a few moments ago, I always say technology works best when it brings people together. You are doing this. That's one of the big reasons I invited you on the show today. But more than anything, thanks for joining me and sharing that story.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, Neil. And it's fantastic talking to you.
Such a powerful story there, and how it was designed to meet the specific requirements of Asian American global professionals who actually make up over 25% of the foreign-born labour force over in the US. And most of those global professionals currently rely on brick-and-mortar remittance centres to send money back home to their loved ones, which, let's face it, it's laborious, time-consuming, and seems almost out of touch with this digital age that we're living in. Especially when you throw in high transaction fees, complicated processes, and limited access to other crucial financial services such as loans, savings, and investments. And today's story was just one example of a company of how they're helping Asian Americans send money back home to the Philippines. But I'm conscious this is a global issue. So wherever you're listening in the world, if today's episode has resonated with you, if there's a similar solution or workaround or how you're using technology to also send money back home, I'd love to hear your story too. So please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Send your messages in. I'd love to get your voice heard, and we'll keep this conversation going. But that's it for today. I'll return again tomorrow with another guest. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.